What's up, everyone? This is Pete, back from a long break. Hope everyone is well. So, I want to do a reaction video to this video from PBS. It's called Are the Tainos Extinct? So, we're going to watch this together. Everything's going to be source, and then we're going to get in and discuss.
I remember at my mom's memorial, one of my older cousins walked up to me and he said, "You know, cousin, we are not Caribs." I remember having this feeling that if I'm not Carib, what could I possibly be? And he
Okay, so, just to remember, Caribs are Kalinago. Where the Kalinago considered the term Carib a derogatory term. That's because, when you look at the chronicles, they describe Caribs as being cannibalistic. But when you look at, for example, the last post that I wrote on what our myths, right? We can observe that Kalinago men or Parina, that they were aggressive towards other tribes. Right? An example is in the post that I posted on Warao Mips that makes reference to the Karina. And there's also other accounts. We look at the Kalinago and also the Chronicles where they're described as being warlike.
said a word that I never heard before. He said, "We are Taino."
All right, so I want to stop right there. Okay, so here you see Miguel Sage, right, and you see Mucaro Barrero in this. So let's just clarify this momentarily. All right, so when we look at this map, we're mainly going to emphasize on the top right corner where it says European African migrations 1492 through the present, right? So um, in the video they just mentioned about the Taino. So everyone can be refreshed. The Tainos were the island Arawaks of the Greater Antilles. So that would count Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Cuba, and Jamaica. Okay, I'm talking about the totality of the islands of the Greater Antilles together. So in the Lesser Antilles, that was Kalinago territory. So anyone from the Lesser Antilles would be Kalinago. And in the Greater Antilles, right, from Puerto Rico to Jamaica, those were the Tainos.
I'm here at the library at the University of the Virgin Islands. This was one of my first stops 12 years ago when I started my research on the Taino people. The U.S. Virgin Islands is known as America's paradise. But there is such a greater history beneath the surface of the natives that were here long before colonization. After my cousin told me that I was a Taino, that got me even more curious to find out what was this Taino that I'd never heard about. The Taino and Caribs were very distinct indigenous groups in the Caribbean. Geographically, the Taino primarily inhabited the Greater Antilles and were the most in number, while the Caribs inhabited the Lesser Antilles.
So once again, any reference to the Caribs of the Lesser Antilles, those are the Kalinago.
The Taino are the original inhabitants of these here islands that are now called the Virgin Islands. Growing up,
So we can say when referring to Taino or Kalinago, those are island Arawaks. Right? And the island Arawaks, they will look like this. okay, like modern day Locono before post contact admixture.
Family always took part in the carnival celebration. My grandmother's sister started a troop known as the Traditional Indians. From then, I had only ever heard that we were representing the Carib Indians. So I lived 48 years of my life with this belief. Confirming that I was Taino opened up a whole new world. So I started to search online. The first thing that popped up was the United Confederation of Taino People. So I wrote a letter to the president of the United Confederation of Taino People, which was Roberto Mukuru.
I'm Roberto Mucaro Borrero. I'm a cacique of the Guainia Taino tribe of Boriquen, or what we know today as.
So sorry to cut it off. So just want to look at this real quick. Okay, when you look at Mokoro and also Miguel Sagued, including myself and others, right? We are mixed descendants of Tainos, and also when you look at this map, as I've stated recently, right? We're not just descendants of Tainos, but we are also descendants of first contact interactions.
Puerto Rico. Back in about 2011, I received contact. She talked about affiliation with the Taino people, with the community. Up until this point, we've signed the treaty between our peoples, between our communities. We've come together as family. So the significance of this day, why this day is so powerful, this is also October 12th. And this is the day that Columbus is known to having come in to this side of the world to begin a cycle of genocide against our people. So for us, Columbus is not a day. It's a symbol of genocide and oppression. But we standing here are a symbol of the resilience of our people and how our people still confront the forces of colonialism every day just to be who we are, so that we're not only surviving, but at the end of the day, we're thriving.
Now that I became a member of the United Confederation of Taino People, of course, now I wanted to share with everybody, look at me, I'm a Taino.
So this is what I want to discuss, right? How did the Taino live on through the 21st century, right? The Tainos live on through the 21st century through their mixed descendants.
Today they call us tribes, but in actuality we were nations. When Columbus came in 1492, there were 5 million Tainos throughout the Caribbean. 27 years later, when he left, there were only 50,000.
So let's discuss that. Something I always mention, and we look at this article here, which is a great article, in my opinion. It's called Reconstructing the Population Genetic History of the Caribbean. And in it talks about population bottlenecks. So what happened to the native Taino was basically the population bottlenecks, meaning post-contact, the native population in the Greater Antilles was reduced, right, due to various factors cited, right? And the remaining native population that was left admixed, okay? And this would give rise to mixed descendants. So we look at this map from Taino and African maternal heritage in the Greater Antilles, right? The yellow part is the Taino mitochondrial DNA that is found, right? Please note that when it comes to Haiti and Jamaica, there were historical depopulation events. That's why the native mitochondrial DNA will either be very minuscule or non-existent for those regions.
I'm going to tell you the story of two of the Taino queens. I remember the first presentation I went to, everyone was telling their stories and I introduced myself. And when I told my story, Myron Jackson said to me, "You were chosen by your ancestors to do this work." So I started to question and find out how I can share this knowledge with our students especially, because if my DNA says that I'm here, then I'm not extinct. Columbus's journals painted a story that all the Taino were dead, and it was adapted as the truth. This is why it has taken so many years to try to undo the myth of our extinction. So how did I get here? Let's go back to the beginning. As far as I know, my great-grandmother, Francisca Almestica, history have a funny way of repeating itself. My great-grandmother, Francisca Almestica, was taken unwillingly to South Island. And here we are today, willingly going to South Island. When I first stepped foot on South Island, I had mixed feelings. I felt accomplished having returned to the place where my ancestors lived, but my heart was filled with sadness knowing that a 14-year-old girl, my great-grandmother, who was kidnapped like many other young Taino women at the time, was left to fend for herself and later for her 6 daughters. Knowing her stories, knowing her struggles, now it is for me to tell her story. It is for us to carry on her legacy.
What's happening here is that we know, because of the history of the Virgin Islands and other islands in the Caribbean, that many of our leadership was broken down because there was no cacique in many hundreds of years here. The community came together to affirm the title of cacique to Makiafan.
All right, so let's go over the term cacique. Cacique means head of the house, or literally has a head. So when you look at these people today, right, as we seen this picture earlier, right, the people in the Caribbean islands, they wouldn't look like pure Arawaks in stock because, you know, today in the 21st century, the people noted, right, includes Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, Kalinago, and Garifuna, right? We would be mixed descendants post 1492. So I just want to review this that I posted on my community tab a few months ago, right? As far as percentages, Aruba has the highest percent of Arawak ancestry, 80%, right? Followed by Puerto Ricans, 61%, followed by Cubans, 33%, and Dominicans, 22%, right? And in the Greater Antilles, right, that's where first contact interactions took place. So those population bottlenecks, right, that's why, you know, the percentages would be low. The Kalinago has 55% Arawak ancestry. So that shows that they too also have post contact admixture, which you can see in the video.
I was given the honor of becoming the first female cacique in over 100 years. With this newfound knowledge, I wanted somebody to be able to tell me, okay, this is your next step. So that led me to the Office of Historic Preservation.
Cacique Phillips, welcome.
So I just want to mention again, because they keep mentioning the word Taino, right? The Taino will account again for the Greater Antilles. So anywhere in the Lesser Antilles, right? That's Kalinago territory, right? Because we know that St. Vincent, right? That's where we get the Garinagu or the Garifuna, right? And the Garifuna, right? They are the closest relatives to the Kalinago and the Taino.
When you think of what a Taino should look like, what do you see? You can no longer think about a specific color, skin tone. You can no longer think of a specific hair type. You can no longer think of a specific feature.
Okay, let's pause right there, okay? Again, let's go back to this, right? So during the early contact period in the Caribbean, these were the Arawaks, right? And they would appear like modern day Locono and Garifuna. Post 1492, right? All the way through the 21st century, the Taino and the Kalinago, they survived through admixture, right? That's why if you look at today, in modern day, right, they would look like mixed descendants. This is where we get Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, and also the Garifuna post-contact, because we are all the result of post-contact admixture.
Children and their children to know without a shadow of a doubt that they are Taino. And I want them to acknowledge the Creator in everything that they do. I want them to be proud of their heritage and the fact that they now carry the bloodline of their ancestors. Lastly, I want all of my children to be knowledgeable enough so that one day I can pass down the honor of being cacique to one of them. Hahom.
All right, so once again, hahom is the word for thank you in Kalinago. So we look at this map again. Let's emphasize on the top right corner, right? European and African migrations, 1492 through present. So after this time, the indigenous inhabitants of the Caribbean, right, they admix. So when you look at the people today in the 21st century, right, the people that I emphasize, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, and also Kalinago people, right? The island Arawaks of the Caribbean live on through us through admixture, right? You see, once again, Aruba, 80% Arawak ancestry. Puerto Ricans have the highest, well, the second highest, 61%. Cubans, 33%. Dominicans, 22%. Kalinagos have 55% Arawak ancestry, right? These are all recent DNA studies. Once again, a great article to read, which I will source, Reconstructing the Population Genetic History of the Caribbean, right? And it talks about population bottlenecks. And that's what made me to understand with the bottlenecks, meaning the native population being reduced, the remaining that was left, admix, and that will give rise to the mixed descendants today in the 21st century, post 1492. So that's all for today. Like, comment, and share. Don't be reactionary. Put some thought into it. And until next time, peace.